The first thing I did after returning to the past was smile at the girl who killed me. The carriage stopped before the Vale estate. A young girl stepped down, clutching a worn suitcase. Golden hair framed her innocent face as blue eyes nervously scanned the mansion. I knew better. In my first life, I welcomed her with open arms. She repaid me by stealing my family, my future, and finally my life. The execution platform flashed before my eyes. Ropes cut into my wrists as the Capitol watched my disgrace. My father never looked at me. My mother hid her face. My brothers stood beside the adopted daughter they believed. The man I loved declared justice had been served. Then the floor vanished beneath my feet. I woke 5 years in the past, back to the day they brought her home. "Serafina," my mother called. "Come greet your new sister." New sister. Those words once shattered me. I had only returned after years of captivity, still trying to reclaim my place. Yet they had already found someone to replace me. This time I walked to the carriage. The girl looked up. "Lady Serafina." She lowered her head. "Perfect." I took her suitcase. "Welcome to the Vale family, Alara." She blinked before smiling. "Thank you. I hope I won't cause trouble." "You already have. You just don't know it yet." Mother wrapped an arm around Alara. "See? I told you Serafina would welcome you." Father nodded. "From today onward, Alara is family." My eldest brother smiled. "If anyone bullies you, tell us." The second laughed. "We'll always protect our little sister." Little sister. The title that should have been mine. I watched them and felt nothing. Once I chased every smile they gave her, hoping they'd remember I was their real daughter. Now I knew better. People who chose blindness would never see the truth. Alara glanced at me. A tiny crease appeared between her brows. Confusion. She expected jealousy. She expected hostility. Instead, I smiled sweeter. Mother led Alara inside. Father and my brothers followed with her luggage. No one noticed me. Just like before, except this time, I preferred it. As I entered, memories returned. The staircase where I was accused. The dining hall where they called me selfish. The garden where I begged Mother to believe me. None of it had happened. But it would, unless I changed the game. Alara slowed until we walked together. "Lady Serafina," she whispered, "are you really happy that I'm here?" I met the eyes of the girl who would one day smile as I died. "Very happy," I answered. "Because this time, I know every move you'll make, and I'll be waiting for everyone." That evening, the family gathered for Alara's welcome dinner. I remembered this night. It was the first time I lost. Not because anything terrible happened, because I let my emotions decide for me. In my previous life, my cold silence convinced everyone I hated Alara before knowing her. By dinner's end, they were comforting the frightened orphan while I sat alone. This time I smiled whenever Alara looked my way. Mother beamed. "Alara has such wonderful manners." Father nodded. "She's a diligent child." My eldest brother laughed. "She's already more polite than you were." Soft laughter spread across the table. Once those words pierced my heart. Now I calmly sipped my tea. I had spent my first life defending myself. This time I'd let them reveal their favoritism. Alara looked at me apologetically. "Lady Serafina, I'm sorry everyone's paying so much attention to me." I shook my head. "There's nothing to apologize for. They're happy to welcome another member of the family." Mother smiled. "See, I knew my daughters would get along." Daughters. Not because she loved me. Because I behaved exactly as she expected. Dessert arrived. A servant placed a porcelain plate before Alara. She reached for it, then glanced at me. The plate slipped from her hands. It shattered across the floor. Alara stepped back, tears filling her eyes. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean..." The servants rushed forward. Father sighed. "It's only a plate." Mother embraced her. "Don't cry. No one blames you." I lowered my eyes. This wasn't an accident. It was a test. She wanted to see how quickly they'd protect her. The answer came immediately. My eldest brother wiped her tears. The second smiled reassuringly. Even Father softened his voice. Months later, another plate would break. That time, Alara would say I pushed her. No one would question it. Tonight had already taught them she was fragile. After dinner, I returned to my room. Everything looked exactly as before my life fell apart. Inside my drawer rested a leather journal. Blank. Once I filled it with memories of the family I wanted to keep. Now I wrote only one sentence. Never react. Make them expose themselves. A knock sounded. "Lady Serafina," a maid said. "Lady Alara wishes to see you." I smiled. "Already?" I opened the door. Alara stood outside holding a small box tied with a blue ribbon. "I wanted to thank you for being kind today. I made these cookies myself. I accepted the box. Thank you. Surprise flickered across her face before her innocent smile returned. After she left, I looked at the cookies. In my previous life, I ate one without thinking. The next morning, I became violently ill. Before the week ended, everyone believed I poisoned myself just to frame my new sister. I waited until Alara disappeared before closing my bedroom door. The box of cookies rested in my hands. In my previous life, I had eaten one, touched that she wanted to get along with me. Before sunrise, I collapsed with a fever. When poison was found, everyone believed I had poisoned myself to frame Alara. This time, I left the box unopened. No anger, no panic, only patience. The next morning, I carried it downstairs. Mother noticed it first. Serafina, aren't those the cookies Alara baked for you? I nodded. They looked too beautiful to eat alone. Everyone should enjoy them. Mother smiled. How thoughtful. Father nodded. Serve them with breakfast. Across the table, Alara's fingers tightened around her teacup. Only for a moment. Then she smiled. I'd be happy if everyone liked them. The servants placed the cookies on a silver tray. My eldest brother reached for one. I calmly lifted my tea. Before he could take a bite, Alara shot to her feet. Wait! Everyone turned. Her face flushed. I just remembered. I used spoiled butter yesterday. Please don't eat them. Silence. Then Father laughed. So that's all? The servants removed the tray. Mother squeezed Alara's hand. You work too hard. Next time, let the kitchen help you. I'm sorry, Alara whispered. No one blamed her. No one questioned why she remembered only when someone else was about to eat one. I watched quietly. She had saved herself. Fast, natural, interesting. Breakfast ended. As everyone left, my second brother stopped beside me. Serafina, spend more time with Alara. She's still adjusting. Once I would have reminded him I was the one still adjusting. Today I only smiled. I'll do my best. Satisfied, he left. I wandered into the garden. The roses had begun to bloom. Once, I cried here because I couldn't understand why my family always believed Alara. Now I knew. Love built on lies wasn't worth chasing. Leaves rustled behind the hedges. A moment later, Alara appeared carrying a basket of flowers. Lady Serafina, I was looking for you. I smiled. Did you need something? She lowered her eyes. I hope we're becoming friends. Friends, I almost laughed. Instead, I stepped closer and tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Of course, for the briefest moment, the warmth vanished from her eyes. Confusion. Nothing I did matched the Serafina she expected. She searched my face for answers. Good, keep wondering. The more uncertain you become, the more mistakes you'll make. We walked back toward the mansion together when a servant hurried over. Young ladies, the tailor has arrived. Mother wishes both of you measured for next month's royal banquet. I stopped. The royal banquet. The first time Alara framed me before the nobility, and the first time my family chose her over me. The royal banquet was still weeks away, yet I remembered every detail of the night that destroyed my reputation. In my first life, it was the evening. Nobles began whispering. That Lord and Lady Vale's true daughter was cruel. By sunrise, half the capital believed I despised my adopted sister. This time I'd be ready. The tailor spent the afternoon taking our measurements while Mother discussed fabrics with Alara. Father simply nodded whenever Alara insisted she didn't deserve expensive dresses. My brothers declared she should have the finest gown because it would be her first royal banquet. No one asked what I wanted. When the tailor turned to me, Mother answered first. Serafina prefers simple colors. I smiled faintly. Not because she understood me, because she never cared to ask. Actually, I'd like dark blue this year. The room fell silent. Mother blinked. Dark blue. I thought you disliked bold colors. Perhaps my taste has changed. The tailor wrote it down. Father returned to his papers. Only Alara kept watching me. She smiled gently, but caution hid behind her eyes. She couldn't understand why I no longer acted as she remembered. Good. Questions creates hesitation. Hesitation creates mistakes. After the tailor left, Mother took Alara to inspect the guest rooms. My brothers followed Father, leaving me alone in the drawing room. A moment later, Alara returned. Lady Serafina. I looked up from my book. Yes? Have I offended you somehow? Why would you think that? Because you've been so kind to me. Anyone else would have heard gratitude. I heard suspicion. I closed my book. Kindness shouldn't make you uncomfortable. She lowered her eyes. You're right. I was overthinking. Perhaps. She left with a graceful bow. The moment she disappeared, my smile faded. She wasn't uneasy because I'd attacked her. She was uneasy because I hadn't. She knew how to manipulate an angry enemy. She didn't know how to manipulate one who refused to react. That evening I opened my journal. She has begun testing me. Do nothing until she acts first. A knock interrupted me. Lady Seraphina, Lady Ilara requests your presence in the music room. I remembered that room. It was where Ilara first learned how easily tears became weapons. She stood beside the grand piano when I arrived. I wanted to practice before the banquet, she said softly. Would you teach me? In my previous life, I refused. Mother had sighed. She's only asking for help, Seraphina. Tonight, I walked to the piano. Of course. Relief crossed Ilara's face. She truly hadn't expected me to agree. I showed her where to place her fingers, and she copied every movement. Halfway through, the door opened. Mother entered with my brothers. How wonderful, Mother smiled. I knew my daughters would become close. Ilara looked at me gratefully. Thank you for helping me. Your family. For the first time since my return, genuine uncertainty crossed her face. She no longer feared my hatred. She feared the enemy she could no longer understand. And that was far more dangerous. The following days passed more peacefully than anyone expected. That alone made Ilara uneasy. She smiled, laughed, and played the grateful adopted daughter perfectly. But I noticed the brief pauses whenever she looked at me. She kept waiting for my jealousy to appear. It never did. Instead, I greeted her every morning, joined her for tea whenever Mother asked, and answered every question calmly. The happier my family became, the more uncertain Ilara looked. One afternoon, Mother asked us to arrange flowers in the drawing room before guests arrived. I remembered this day well. In my first life, Ilara secretly knocked over an expensive crystal vase. When everyone rushed in, she stood among the broken glass, crying that she only wanted to help me. No one questioned her. They blamed me. This time, I kept my eyes on the crystal vase resting near the table's edge. Mother was called away, leaving only Ilara and me. She smiled. Lady Seraphina, these flowers are beautiful. They are. She stepped closer to the table. Her sleeve brushed the vase. It tipped, just as I remembered. Before it could fall, I caught it. Silence filled the room. Ilara stared at me, unable to hide her surprise. I carefully returned the vase to the table. That was close. She forced a smile. Thank you. I wasn't paying attention. It happens. Moments later, Mother returned. Everything looks lovely. Ilara quickly spoke. Lady Seraphina saved the vase. I almost dropped it. Mother looked at me. You reacted quickly. I nodded. I was nearby. She smiled and continued arranging the flowers. The conversation moved on, but something had changed. I felt Ilara watching me for the rest of the afternoon. She no longer wondered whether I hated her. She wondered how I always stayed one step ahead. That evening I opened my journal. First the cookies, then the vase. She's changing her approach. She'll stop relying on rehearsed tricks. She'll improvise. A soft knock interrupted me. Come in. My eldest brother entered, looking oddly uncomfortable. Mother asked me to tell you your banquet dress will be finished tomorrow. Thank you. He hesitated. You seem different lately. Do I? You don't argue anymore. After he left, his words lingered. In my first life, I thought silence meant defeat. Now I knew it could be a weapon. When people couldn't read me, they revealed themselves instead. Night settled over the estate. Another maid stopped outside my door. Lady Seraphina, your mother requests that you and Lady Ilara accompany her to the capital tomorrow. I already knew why. The banquet gowns were finished. Tomorrow, for the first time since my return, Ilara and I would leave the estate together. The carriage rolled through the capital after sunrise. Familiar streets passed outside the window, bringing memories from my previous life. The dress shop, the bakery where Mother bought sweets for Ilara, the fountain where my brothers promised to protect her. Everything looked the same. Only I had changed. Mother chatted happily with Ilara across from me. You'll love your gown. The tailor said it suits you perfectly. Ilara smiled. I hope Lady Seraphina likes hers too. Mother glanced at me. I'm sure she will. The conversation ended. They had already grown used to believing I needed less affection than Ilara. I no longer cared. The carriage stopped before the royal tailor's boutique. Inside, finished gowns stood behind silk curtains. Lady Vale, both dresses are ready. Ilara's gown was revealed first. Soft ivory embroidered with silver flowers. Mother smiled. How beautiful. Father would be proud. Ilara lowered her head modestly. Then my gown was uncovered. Dark blue silk shimmered beneath the light while silver threads traced the neckline. The room fell silent. "It suits you," Mother admitted. "Thank you." As the tailor adjusted the sleeves, I caught Alara watching my reflection. Not with envy, with calculation. She was searching for another chance. After the fitting, Mother suggested visiting nearby shops. The streets were crowded with nobles preparing for the banquet. Then it happened. A servant carrying wooden crates stumbled toward us. Everyone stepped back. Everyone except Alara. She moved closer and brushed my shoulder. Not enough to push me, just enough to make it seem that I had pushed her. She cried out and fell onto the stone road. People immediately turned. Mother rushed over. "Alara!" She helped her up. "Are you hurt?" Alara looked at me with trembling eyes. Lady Serafina didn't mean to. The unfinished sentence spread faster than an accusation. Did the elder daughter push her? How cruel. Poor young lady. Exactly like my first life. Only this time, I hadn't moved. I calmly faced the servant. "You saw what happened, didn't you?" He froze before nodding. "My lady, you never touched her." She stepped sideways while avoiding my crates. Silence. Mother frowned. "Are you certain?" "Yes, my lady." Color drained from Alara's face before she lowered her eyes. "Perhaps I simply lost my balance." Mother sighed. Thank goodness no one was hurt. The matter ended there. No apology, no suspicion. We returned to the carriage in silence. Across from me, Alara kept her hands folded. She had failed again. Not because her plan was weak. Because I had already seen it once before. She still believed she controlled the game. She didn't realize she was already reacting to mine. And once the hunter begins chasing shadows, she slowly becomes the prey. The journey back to the estate ended in silence. Mother assumed everyone was tired after the trip to the capital, while my brothers noticed nothing beneath Alara's gentle smile. Only I understood what today's failure meant. Alara had lost twice in public. Someone like her would never accept that quietly. That evening, Mother invited us for tea in the garden. Servants arranged. Pastries across the table as the setting sun painted the roses gold. Everything looked peaceful. Too peaceful. As Mother chatted about the royal banquet, Alara reached for the teapot. "Allow me." She poured tea for everyone before filling my cup last. I smiled. "Thank you." Her fingers tightened around the handle for a moment. She was waiting. In my previous life, I drank without hesitation. Minutes later, violent stomach pain sent me to bed. The physician blamed spoiled food, but Alara tearfully insisted she had prepared the tea exactly as I liked it. Mother concluded I had poisoned myself to ruin Alara's reputation. No one questioned her. This time I left my cup untouched. "You're not drinking?" Mother asked. I smiled apologetically. "Father asked me to bring him a document after tea. I'll drink it when I return." Mother nodded. "Of course." I walked toward the mansion. Before I reached the steps, hurried footsteps followed. "Lady Serafina!" A young maid stopped before me, breathing hard. "Forgive me, my lady. The gardener accidentally dropped fresh mint into your tea, instead of Lady Alara's. Came to replace it before you drank it." Mint. I almost laughed. There had never been any mint. Someone had invented an excuse to stop me from drinking. I looked across the garden. Alara stood perfectly still beside the tea table. Our eyes met. She knew. I knew. Without a word, I handed the cup to the maid. "Thank you. Please prepare another." She hurried away. When I returned, Alara was smiling again as though nothing had happened. Mother continued chatting happily. No one realized another trap had failed. After tea, I wandered to the pond where I had once cried until dawn after Father accused me of lying. Back then, I believed proving my innocence would earn their love. Now I knew better. People determined to believe a lie would reject the truth. Soft footsteps stopped behind me. My eldest brother. After a long silence, he asked, "Are you happy here?" I looked at the rippling water. "Shouldn't I be?" He frowned. "You've become difficult to understand. Maybe I'm finally understanding myself." He said nothing more. After a quiet nod, he returned to the mansion. I watched him leave. For the first time, someone looked at me with confusion instead of disappointment. It wasn't trust, but it was different. Sometimes the smallest crack could bring down an entire wall. Night settled over the estate as I opened my journal. Another failed attempt. She's becoming impatient. Impatient people stop making careful choices. They start making desperate ones. I wrote one final sentence. The royal banquet is only days away. If Alara wants to destroy me before then, she'll have no choice but to risk everything. The morning of the royal banquet arrived beneath a cloudless sky. Servants hurried through the estate carrying polished shoes, jewelry, and pressed formal wear. Every hallway buzzed with excitement. I stood before my mirror as a maid fastened the last clasp of my dark blue gown. For a moment, I saw the woman from my previous life staring back at me. The girl who entered the royal palace, believing her family would finally stand beside her. The girl who left it completely alone. A knock interrupted my thoughts. Mother entered with a warm smile. "You look beautiful, Serafina." The compliment almost surprised me. "Thank you." She adjusted a loose strand of my hair. "I'm glad both my daughters will attend together." Then she left. I watched the door close. She wasn't cruel. She was weak. Whenever forced to choose between truth and the child who cried louder, she chose the easier path. Downstairs, the family gathered before boarding the carriage. Elara descended in her ivory gown, drawing everyone's admiration. When she reached me, she whispered quietly, "I hope tonight goes better than your last banquet." I met her eyes. "It will. For me." Her smile stiffened. The journey passed quietly. The royal ballroom glittered beneath crystal. Chandeliers, while music echoed across the marble floor. In my first life, my nightmare began here. Tonight it would end. Mother introduced Elara to noble ladies while father spoke with officials. My brothers stayed nearby. Everything unfolded exactly as before. Then I noticed Elara slipping away from the crowd. She wasn't wandering. She had a destination. I followed from a distance. She entered a quiet corridor where servants carried trays of wine. Hidden behind a marble pillar, I watched her glance around before slipping, a tiny folded packet into one crystal glass. She withdrew her hand and smiled. "Thank you." The servant bowed, unaware, and carried the tray back toward the ballroom. My heartbeat remained steady. So this was her next move. In my first life, I accepted a glass of wine. Moments later, I collapsed. Poison was found, and everyone believed I had meant to poison Elara, but drank the wine myself. No one questioned it. Tonight, I stepped back before Elara noticed me. She returned to the ballroom looking perfectly composed. Soon, servants offered wine to the guests. One stopped before me. "Not yet." He bowed and continued. Across the room, Elara searched the crowd. Searching for me. Searching for the poisoned glass. But she couldn't find it. I had never taken it. I watched the tray pass from noble to noble as unease slowly crossed her face. The glass was no longer under her control. Neither was her plan. Then, without warning, father accepted a crystal glass from that very tray. Time seemed to stop. Across the ballroom, Elara's eyes widened in horror. For the first time since my return, the person standing closest to her own trap wasn't me. Father raised the crystal glass toward his lips. Across the ballroom, Elara forgot to breathe. Without thinking, she rushed forward. "Father!" Her voice cut through the music. Nearby nobles turned as she grabbed father's wrist, spilling the wine across the marble floor. Father frowned. "Elara?" She stared at the puddle, searching for an excuse. I saw something floating inside the glass. The servant carrying the tray paled. "Your Grace, I inspected every glass myself." Father examined the remaining wine. "It appears perfectly clean." Elara forced a smile. "Perhaps. I imagined it." "I'm terribly sorry." Several nobles chuckled, assuming she had simply overreacted. The musicians resumed playing and the celebration continued. I noticed something no one else did. The servant quietly removed the remaining glasses instead of serving them. The poisoned wine disappeared without anyone drinking it. Elara had saved father, not because she loved him, because she couldn't let an innocent man die from a trap meant for me. If father collapsed, the investigation would reach the servant. And eventually her. For the first time, desperation had defeated calculation. I stepped onto a quiet balcony overlooking the palace gardens. The cool night air steadied my thoughts. Everything was changing. Not the past, the future. Every failed plan pushed Elara toward greater risks. That made her more dangerous than ever. Soft footsteps approached. My eldest brother stopped beside me. "There you are. Mother was looking for you." I smiled. "I wanted some fresh air." He leaned against the railing. "You handled yourself well tonight. People used to say you always looked angry at gatherings. Tonight, you seemed different. Calmer." His words lingered. He wasn't apologizing. He still believed every accusation from my previous life, but the certainty behind them was fading. Someone expecting a monster kept finding only silence. Sooner or later, they would question what they believed. When we returned to the ballroom, Elara stood alone near a pillar. She looked exhausted. Our eyes met, and she walked over before stopping a respectful distance away. Lady Seraphina, yes? She lowered her voice. Do you ever feel as though everything has suddenly become unfamiliar? For a moment, my heart nearly stopped. Did she suspect something? No, she wasn't suspicious. She was frightened. Nothing was unfolding the way she expected. I answered carefully. People change. Sometimes the world changes with them. She searched my face, then quietly walked away. Near midnight, the banquet ended, and our family returned to the carriage. Mother happily called the evening a success. Father agreed. Even my brothers looked pleased. Only Alara remained silent. She stared out the window, fingers trembling in her lap. She had entered the palace believing she controlled every move. She left knowing she no longer did. And once a schemer begins fearing her own plans, she inevitably makes the one mistake she can never take back. The days after the royal banquet felt strangely peaceful. That frightened me more than any trap. Alara had grown unusually quiet since returning from the palace. She no longer looked for chances to corner me. She smiled when spoken to, fulfilled every duty, and spent hours inside her room. She was thinking. People like Alara became most dangerous when they stopped acting. One rainy afternoon, Mother asked us to organize old family albums in Father's study. Dust covered the shelves as portraits watched over the room. These were taken before either of you came home, Mother said with a smile. Neither of us answered. Soon Father received a visitor, and Mother left with him, leaving only Alara and me. Rain tapped against the windows as she closed the album in her hands. Lady Seraphina. I looked up. You've changed so much. People do. She shook her head. Not like this. There was no accusation. Only confusion. I returned another book to the shelf. Perhaps you've only started noticing me. She fell silent before asking the question she'd avoided for weeks. Do you hate me? I studied her. In my previous life, my answer would have been yes. Now, hatred wasn't useful. No. She stared at me. Then why? Because whether I hate you or forgive you won't change what you've chosen to do. Silence settled between us. I don't understand you anymore. I smiled faintly. I know. Footsteps echoed outside. Mother returned. Girls, dinner will be served soon. We followed her without another word. That night, rain continued pouring over the estate. Unable to sleep, I headed for the library. As I passed Father's study, faint voices drifted through the open door. Father, Mother. My eldest brother, Father sighed. Something has bothered me since the banquet. Mother looked at him. What is it? Alara has seemed frightened lately. My brother nodded. I've noticed it too. Father hesitated. Meanwhile, Seraphina hasn't done anything deserving criticism for weeks. I stopped walking. Father wasn't defending me. Not yet. But doubt had finally entered his mind. Once doubt appeared, blind trust could never fully return. I walked away before anyone noticed. Back in my room, I watched the storm through the window. Everything was unfolding as I'd hoped. Not because my family suddenly loved me. Because they had finally begun questioning the lies they once accepted. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. A maid entered nervously. Lady Seraphina. Lady Alara dismissed every servant tonight. She said she wanted to be alone. I nodded. Thank you. After she left, I remained by the window. Alone? That wasn't like Alara. When frightened, she surrounded herself with witnesses. Choosing isolation meant only one thing. She had made a decision. Lightning flashed across the estate, illuminating the distant lights in Alara's room. For the first time since my rebirth, I knew it was coming. And whatever she decided tonight would determine which of us walked away from this family forever. Morning arrived beneath a gray sky, but the heaviness in the air had nothing to do with the lingering storm. As I entered the dining hall, every member of the family was already seated except Alara. Mother frowned at the empty chair while Father calmly unfolded the morning paper. Moments later, Alara appeared with a gentle smile that almost looked convincing. She apologized for oversleeping, blaming the restless weather. Mother immediately accepted the excuse, but Father studied her for a brief moment before returning to his breakfast. It was subtle, yet I noticed it. He had started observing instead of blindly believing. Throughout the meal, Alara laughed at Mother's stories and politely answered my brother's questions, but her eyes wandered toward me far too often. Each glance disappeared the instant I looked back. She was measuring me, trying to understand why every plan she remembered had unraveled. The uncertainty in her expression told me she still hadn't found the answer. That afternoon, Invitations arrived for the annual charity auction hosted by the royal family. In my previous life, that event had marked the beginning of my downfall. Alara had secretly hidden an expensive sapphire necklace inside my handbag before, accusing me of theft in front of countless nobles. My family had believed her without hesitation. Even after the necklace was discovered, no one allowed me to explain. I had become the noble woman whispered about across the entire capital. This time I calmly accepted my invitation. Mother smiled warmly. I'm glad both of you will attend together. Alara lowered her eyes. Of course, Mother. I almost pitied her. She still intended to follow the story she remembered. She simply didn't know I had already memorized every page. Later that evening, I quietly entered the estate's storage, room where bags prepared for the auction were kept. Mine rested exactly where I expected. Instead of searching for evidence, I placed a tiny silver bell beneath the inner lining before closing it again. It was nearly impossible to notice unless someone reached inside. If Alara tried repeating her old trick, the bell would fall and ring the moment the bag was opened. I didn't need to catch her stealing. I only needed everyone else to witness the impossible timing. As I stepped outside, I found my second brother standing at the end of the corridor. He looked surprised. What are you doing here? I lifted a folded pair of gloves I had taken from the shelf beside the door. I realized I'd forgotten these. He nodded without suspicion and walked away. I watched his figure disappear before quietly exhaling. One careless mistake could ruin everything. But this time, the mistake wouldn't be mine. Across the courtyard, I caught sight of Alara watching me from her bedroom window. Our eyes met for only a heartbeat before she slowly closed the curtains. She believed she was preparing another trap. She had no idea she was walking straight into mine. The royal charity auction was as magnificent as I remembered. Nobles admired priceless antiques, while servants moved through the crowded hall. I carried my handbag calmly, aware of every eye around us. Alara stayed beside Mother, smiling as though nothing burdened her conscience. If I hadn't lived this day before, I might have believed she belonged there. The auction ended peacefully. As guests prepared to leave, a noblewoman suddenly cried out, "The royal sapphire necklace has disappeared." Silence swept through the ballroom. Royal guards sealed every exit. By His Majesty's orders, every guest will undergo a respectful inspection. My heartbeat remained steady. This was the moment. One by one, handbags were examined. When the guard reached mine, Alara lowered her head, hiding the anticipation in her eyes. The guard opened my bag. A silver bell slipped from beneath the lining and rang against the marble floor. Everyone turned. The guard frowned, lifted the lining, and revealed the missing sapphire necklace. Gasps echoed across the hall. Mother stared at me in horror. Father slowly stood. Before anyone spoke, I calmly said, "Please inspect Lady Alara's gloves." Confusion spread through the room. A guard accepted her trembling gloves. Fine sapphire dust glittered across the fingertips. The royal jeweler stepped forward. Only someone who handled the necklace recently would have this residue. Alara's face drained of color. I don't know how. The guard searched my bag again and found a small slit beneath the lining. He looked at Father. Someone hid the necklace through this opening. The owner couldn't have placed it there without cutting the bag first. Every eye turned to Alara. She staggered backward. Mother whispered her name. Father's voice was frighteningly calm. "Tell me the truth." Tears streamed down her face. She denied everything at first, then collapsed beneath the evidence. Between sobs, every lie unraveled. She admitted framing me again and again because she was supposed to be the heroine. That she would become a queen. That I was supposed to be left alone to die. The ballroom fell silent. Mother covered her mouth, crying uncontrollably. My brothers stared at Alara as though they had never known her. Father turned to me. His eyes were filled with regret. "Serafina, I'm sorry. In my previous life, I had dreamed of hearing those words. Now they felt empty." I smiled gently. "I accept your apology. But I cannot return to the daughter you abandoned." No one stopped me as I walked away. Behind me, royal guards led Alara out while Mother's cries echoed through the hall. Outside, sunlight finally broke through the clouds. For the first time in 2 lifetimes, I breathed without resentment. Revenge was never about making them suffer. It was about making them face the truth before it was too late. This life no longer belonged to the girl who died begging to be believed. It belonged to the woman who never needed anyone's belief to prove her worth again.